Good morning, my name is Kyle with ABZ Rental. Today we're going to take a look at a drum sander, Silverline to be specific, and we'll talk quickly about an edger as well, which is kind of the pairing mate that you have to finish your job off. Starting off with the drum sander, we'll talk a little bit about the actual configuration. This particular one is a rocker engaged, belt driven drum sander. So the drum down here is actually going to rotate in the forward direction. It has a centralized impeller system on it, which works as a vacuum. The vacuum's great, but realistically, you're going to get 20 to 60% of the dust, just depending on how fine the dust is that you're picking up. It's not going to get 100%, but it is going to keep your job site a little bit cleaner. Coming down, first thing when you're loading paper into it, I always like to make sure that my sander is fully unplugged before I do anything putting my hands near that drum. All it takes is somebody to gently walk by and bump that power switch, and all of a sudden your fingers are a little bit shorter. Your paper here, we sell several different grit papers. I'm going to show you with 100 grit sandpaper, and when we conclude the actual operation of the machine, I'm going to talk you through the different grits of paper, and I'll show you the different regimens that we typically suggest. There isn't a one-size-fits-all, but there's kind of somewhat of a formula that we can tell you for how much paper that you're going to need, and you can kind of calculate it on your own as well. Coming down in, this little bender in the front is for your paper. Slide it in and give it a nice crease over. Same thing's going to go on the other side. Slide in, give it a nice crease. The back side of the machine back here, there's a slot that houses your wrench. Pull that wrench out. Lean the machine backwards. Flip up on your guard. And we're going to spin the drum here. The slot is what we're looking for here. On either side of the slot, we have a little cog. It's a 1/2-inch cog. It's a square. There's a red dot. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that dot pointed up towards you there. I'll turn it so you can see the other side of it, how there is not a dot on it. You want that dot facing up. That's going to open up your slot. There's another one on the opposite side of the drum, on the opposite side of the slot. Make sure that one's facing you as well. At that point, we're going to take our paper, insert it into the slot, and we're going to work it all the way around the drum so it comes back out the other side. Once it does, turn the slot up towards you, meet your two pieces of paper together, and then slide them down in. It's important to take a look at both sides and make sure that your drum is covered all the way around. If not, you can kind of shift the paper back and forth to cover it. Once you get it to that point, I like to take my paper with my hands and work it in, pushing up and pulling down at the same time. Once I get it nice and tight, I hold with my non-dominant hand. Take my other hand, start off on the cog on this side. I'm going to go on it, and I'm going to turn it towards the slot 90 degrees. And I'm going to come over to this side, continue to hold with my non-dominant hand, and I'm going to turn it up 90 degrees. And you see that paper is really cinching in right now. Once I get to there, I like to come back over and give it a little 1/8 of a turn, just a bit of a snug, and you'll hear that paper crack just a little bit. That means it's getting even tighter. At this point, take a look at the drum and squeeze with your fingers. If you can see any slack inside of that at all, stop, go back, redo it. Drum sanders aren't that expensive to rent. The paper costs more money than the rental does. Making sure your paper's on nice and tight is going to ensure that you get the maximum time out of your paper. So always make sure that you do not rush yourself on that step. Flipping it back down, make sure you replace the wrench into the slot in the back, otherwise you'll lose it. Another very noteworthy point to this machine is don't ever let the bag get past halfway full. Always dump it in a well-ventilated area, such as shaking it out outside, not in an enclosed trash can or something like that. And don't ever leave the machine with sawdust inside of the bag unattended. Even if you're just stepping away for a quick drink, take the bag with you, dump it out. The sawdust can get so hot inside, all you need is one light nail to shoot one spark up through the oxygenated impeller system into that bag, and boom, you have a simmering fire. That's a ticking time bomb that's going to eventually catch down the road at some point. When starting this machine, make sure that you have it in the lean back position. Do not plug it in, lean forward, because if your switch is in the on position on accident, it's now going to run away and run right through the sheetrock wall. So make sure you're back. We are running a 15 amp, 1.5 horsepower motor on this, so you cannot extend past the extension cord that it comes with. You got about 20, 25 feet on there. Move around to different outlets. Do not plug it into a drop cord. To start this machine, it's a simple toggle switch right here in the front. Toggle it. Always making sure this bag inflates. If the bag does not inflate, you have some form of soft sandpaper or sawdust clogged up in your impeller system. To engage, you're going to simply rock the machine forward, applying an equal amount of pressure and an equal amount of speed. You're going to walk forward with it just like this, sanding the floor. When you get to the wall, you're going to shift the machine back. Disengage. Now, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about, first, the different types of grits, the order that you need to use the grits in, when you need what grits, and then we're going to go back and we're going to actually talk about implementation on the floor. So where do I start? How far do I go? What do I do? So starting off, we put on a piece of 100 grit sandpaper, which is really finished grit sandpaper for a drum sander. We offer sandpaper all the way down to 12 grit, all the way up to 100 in different increments. 12 grit is not for your novice, it's for your absolute professional in a horrible condition setting. Most people we advise to take 20 grit, 60 grit, and 100 grit. We do what's called a stair-stepping pattern. So we start off with our 60 grit, which is going to be our stripper. That's what we're tearing the floors down with. We're getting these rough floors brought down, all the scratches out, the stain, the poly, whatever you may have on it. Then, once we get it down so that it looks like a new rough floor, we're going to go back with our 60 grit. We're going to go over the entire floor again with 60 grit, which is going to be our medium. That's going to get us so that we're not taking forever using 100 grit. And then we finish off with that 100 grit with one nice pass over the entire floor with the 100 grit, which will finish us off. Now, earlier in the conversation, we talked about this edger over here. An edger does exactly what it sounds like. Your drum sander is great for doing the bulk of the floor, but it stops 4 inches to the perimeter of the wall all the way around the room. So you need something to get that edge area and blend the two back together, which is where the edger comes in. You can watch that on one of our other videos on instructionals for edgers. Today we're going to stick just right over with this guy. So we talked about a room. First thing that you need to look at when you enter into your room is, what do I have on my floor? Do I have wax? Do I have polyurethanes? Do I have shellacs? Is it a bare floor? Do I have stain? Do I have paint? All of those different variables really add up quickly. If you have wax in your floor, which a lot of hardwood floors are going to have because it used to be the staple that people went to clean their floors up, wax and drum sanders do not match well. You're going to eat through your sandpaper and waste so much money on it. If you have wax in your floor, I highly advise doing a little bit of a chemical strip before you come to us to get your sanding rentals. Go get that wax off, then you can come back to us. Always, before coming to us, if you can, take a picture of the floor. So one of our in-house experts can take a look at it and they may be able to advise you a little bit better towards what you need. As always with ABZ Rental, we offer as much paper as you need, and we offer full refund on paper that is unused with no restocking fees. So to start with this machine, when we enter into the room, we want to look to find out which way the grain of the wood is going. The grain of the wood is going to be the way the boards are running, if you don't know the difference. So you start off somewhere around the middle of the room. A very important part to this is making sure that each pass that you don't start at the exact same spot. So let's say we start off at 50% of the room the first time, and we're working from the middle of the room to the wall with the grain. The next time we want to come back and step back maybe to 60%. And then on the next pass, we'll go up to 45%, and then come back to 55%, then maybe 70%. What I'm doing there is actually staggering out our passes. That way, once we do that half of the room, we turn around and we run in the opposite direction. We're not left with a 50% line right across, because when you set that machine down, it's going to dip and it's going to put a little tiny bite in. It's much easier to blend those bites, especially as you step up in paper, if they're not all in the exact same spot. So that's just a little tip that's always helped me going down the road. I appreciate you joining me today to run over this Silverline sander. You guys have a wonderful day.